So maybe we just get started and people join as they will. But I'm going to kick it off really quickly. My name is Liz Nelson, or Elizabeth Nelson, and I am hosting this on behalf of Smart Building Certification. I am their head of research and living lab. And one of the reasons that I'm so excited to talk right now is to present you guys and really let you show your case studies and kind of the work that you're doing within smart buildings. Smart building certification is a certification that connects amazing university partners, incredibly smart buildings, or people who are just using some technology to ask some really important questions, whether it be building needs, sustainability, environment, all that kind of thing. Mark and Weston are kind of they're one of our earliest partners. We're officially launching next year, sorry. And they have amazing case studies of their own. I'm going to let them sort of talk about themselves and then come back to it. But can you guys just briefly introduce yourselves and then come back to it?
Sure. Why don't, Mark, I think you have a case study you want to jump into. So maybe I can introduce myself and then let you introduce yourself and jump into that.
Yep, that's fine.
So my name is Weston Baxter. I'm an assistant professor at Imperial College London. I also work a bit at the Royal College of Art here. And I lead a design and innovation team that works on the intersection of behavioral science and technology and innovation. So we work on projects, a lot of projects within buildings and communities. So how do you redesign spaces that work for people, that develop various behavioral change interventions or help productivity? And how do you make sure to do that in as rigorous and effective way as possible?
Perfect. Thanks, Weston. Yeah, my name is Mark van Helder and I work as program manager at Booking.com in the real estate and workplace services department. And actually the program that I currently manage is how we can create an office environment that let people work happy, healthy and productive. And that's also where our case study is based on. So I think it was roughly 2 years ago where we did receive a lot of complaints about our employees about the office environment, because people were mainly complaining about distractions, visual, noise distractions, etc. And at that time we said, okay, we need to see how can we improve the environment to let people work more happy, healthy and productive. So we gathered a lot of data about occupancy or how the workplace environment was being used. And we spoke to a lot of employees about their experiences and about their daily tasks, etc. And based on that data, we tried to develop a new concept. But what we figured out is that we have to deal with different kind of user groups who all have different kind of needs. So in the end, we ended up with actually 3 different concepts. So our challenge was, okay, but what shall we do now? Which concept should we implement in the near future? So that was the reason why we said, okay, let's set up a living lab and see if we can measure how people behave and how people experience each concept. And we did that by the support of sensors. So we implemented, I think, over 300 sensors that gave us information about occupancy, temperature, noise levels, humidity, etc. And we also gathered data about with the support of surveys and interviews. And we had actually a large user group of approximately 300 people, and they worked in different phases in the different kind of concepts. In the end, we compared the data and the performance of each concept against each other with the support of a data scientist of our company. It was actually the first time that I, as a real estate employee, was working with a data scientist of our company. And and that I was just leaning on him on the data and the conclusions. In the end, it was super important for us because we're currently designing and developing our campus building where we will get roughly 4,000 workstations. So we really need to know how shall we design that campus building, because if we, for example, design a workplace concept and it's not the right thing and we need to redo that, for example, for 4,000 stations, then it's quite costly. So in the end, the outcome is that what we have learned is that there's not a one-size-fits-all for Booking.com. I think that won't surprise people. But we are now able to implement just one layout with some loose elements in the form of panels. And with those kind of panels, we can actually serve multiple people. And it's a flexible solution. So we can, for example, serve the people that prefer to work in a more private environment with less distractions, with less noise. Who could better concentrate there to do deep focus work. But we can also facilitate people that are more mobile, that prefer to collaborate more, and like people from marketing, and which are more dynamic, etc. So moving forward, we now know how to develop and how to design our campus building. Our campus building will definitely get more sensors than we used in the past. It is a building that we would like to constantly learn from, to see how we can adjust the environment to better facilitate the needs of our employees. But also from a building perspective, we would like to predict if we see that there are failures in the building, if we see how we can better, for example, with the building itself, facilitate the needs of our employees, for example, by adjusting the temperature according to preferences. And in the end, we all do this to see how we can further increase the user experience. So I think that's in a nutshell about our living lab experience in the past, and how we also used the data or the outcome of the living lab to design our campus building. So I would like to take it over now I would like to switch now to you, Weston, and more than happy to answer any questions from either you or maybe Liz after your talk.
Yeah, I might just interrupt really quickly because we've had a few more people join since Mark started. I think, so Mark really described the living lab that they used in Amsterdam in their present office to help design their amazing campus building that they're building in Amsterdam. And what I think is so cool about this talk and smart building certification is because it brings people together, but the world is also coming together a little bit right now. We have a workplace expert from Booking.com who's essentially doing a lot similar work to a professor at Imperial College London, who's Dr. Weston Baxter. So to put that together, I just want to, kind of interject there. This is a really amazing time for us. And Weston, why don't you kind of describe some of the work you're doing?
Sure, yeah, and I also just have so many questions for you, Mark. It's really fun to hear about the work you're doing. So I'll save those for a minute. So I have a research group. We're very applied in what we do, and we work with some large multinationals in and around London or the UK, for instance, to rethink space and how do they work effectively with technology. And I think one of the, if there was one key takeaway, I would say is a smart building. What is a smart building? And that's something that a lot of people are trying to define, but it's not just having lots of tech in your company and in your building so you can see lots of sensors. So that by itself there are lots of kitted out buildings now that are really dumb, or at least are not utilized to their full capacity, which is one of my great frustrations, but also really good opportunities. So I'm really interested in what Mark was saying about really leveraging, and I think it's wonderful to see that very human-centric rather than trend-centric or cost-centric model to what you're doing. But so we work with organizations in North America, in Europe, and a couple in Asia and Australia actually right now as well, to really look at how do the interventions that they put in place, or they're thinking about putting into place, how and why should they work on the ground? And so how do you make technology work for people and to really get the benefits that you're looking for? So a couple recent examples, we're working with a large developer here in the UK who is, all in, this will be a several billion-pound project over the next decade that they're working on. And they're trying to understand how they involve people in the process and how do they make sure that all of the steps that they're taking are involving the entire community that they're working with. And so that goes from, large parks that they're developing down to community centers and future work pods that they're making for people in the local community. We also have projects with large companies to ask questions like, one of the big complaints that people get is that they feel like they're a permanent visitor in their own company. And so how do you help them when they're hot desking every day and they don't have any kind of permanency there? How do you give them a sense of ownership over a place or a workstation, even if it's for a half a day, and And by doing that, can you get them to have a stronger sense of belonging within the company, but also better productivity and better outputs? So those are the kinds of questions that we tackle, and really trying to bring behavioral science together with design theory and practical outputs.
Love that. And I think when you talked about a dumb building, I think I'm fascinated by that, because in my opinion, and who knows how much that is worth, a building that is filled with technology, that the data is going into some storage somewhere and never being used, is not a smart building. And maybe that's a good question that we could ask everybody. I mean, what is a smart building? And maybe the answer is, who cares? The answer, and the good question in my mind, is, why is a smart building? And I think what the work that you guys are doing is really bringing that to the surface. Can we take a comparatively a smaller space, like Mark, although it was a huge endeavor and a huge space, but compared to your campus, a smaller space, do a bunch of experiments, ask some really important questions, and solve before, or can we know and really address things and make spaces better, and do this continuously and going through that. So yeah, and especially in the time of Corona, a lot of us are working from home. All of us are working from home, and at this first for me digital conference. But so why do you think that a smart building is a good move or not right now? What is interesting about this time or this technology, or what are you finding?
Well, I think why a smart building or smart technology is super helpful for us, I forgot to mention that, is that especially in the past, all our real estate decisions, let's say designs, etc., were always based on assumptions. So we were never able to really make data-driven decisions. And of course, then sometimes you only listen to the strongest, to a strong voice within your company who's complaining about a certain topic, and you never hear from people who probably likes a certain environment. So with smart technology, we are now able to make data-driven decisions. And I think that's super key and relevant for us. Furthermore, if we look into our campus building, then there are actually 3 areas of focus for us, why I think a smart building is relevant. So the first one is that we are able to manage a smart office. So we can really react, adapt, and predict how the building is performing and its assets and what we need to do. For example, it's in sort of a self-managing system. So as an example, if you have sensors in an elevator and you know that the doors are closing not at the same time as they normally do, then you can predict that probably a failure is coming up soon. So you can probably solve it already, which means that you won't need to disturb the employees later on. Secondly is occupancy and workplace optimization. So we really would like to understand how our building is being used so that we can constantly optimize our workplace environment. That's the second one why I think a smart building is crucial. And the third one is that we want to improve the office experience for our users. And that can be that vary from different aspects. So we really would like to show employees how busy it is in a restaurant so that they probably can go in a later moment to avoid wasting their time, or probably finding the closest phone booth which is now available, or finding where they have parked maybe their bike, because with Booking.com we come with probably 2,000 to 3,000 bikes to the office, etc. So that are the 3 areas of focus which for us are crucial, and why I think a smart building will definitely add value.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's a great way to articulate that. I think going from assumptions to data-driven decision making in the building is, I think, the crux of the entire thing. And to me, the real difference that we have today is the opportunity to transition from a building without technology to a building with technology, obviously. But to me, the smart part of that is what you do with that information, right? What you do with the sensors and everything else. So when I go into a building that has passive heating and cooling or things like that, is that smart? Well, I think it's really smart, but it's, there's no sensor. It's passive. Intentionally, it's elegant in its simplicity. And I think one of the nice things is when you see people who really embrace that and make sure that at the front of their mind they're thinking about how is this helping us make decisions? What are the kinds of decisions we need to make? And I think Mark articulated that really nicely, the kinds of things the 3 things that you're focusing on. And a lot of companies get onto this. The easiest thing for a company to do is to buy some expensive kit, that just they can put a bunch of sensors up and they say, hey, we have a smart building. And one of the first questions you ask is, what decisions have you made as a result of that technology, and why? And a lot of times people can't answer that, and I think that's a symptom of not yet being a smart building. I think we're going to be really successful when we just call smart buildings buildings, right? Just where it's just how it should be. It's just you should be using technology to better improve the building, just like we.
Can we break that down a little bit? Because I don't think people realize how inefficient a dumb building is when we get to it. Like the amount of savings that some of these technologies are saying that you save just on really wasteful programming. So the heating starting at 5 in the morning in the summer, or and then people going and opening the windows and then working with the hot and cool and the fresh air all day and this kind of thing. So dumb buildings are really dumb sometimes. And, to where if it was just a human changing the thermostat, it would actually be a lot smarter. So some of our systems would actually be smarter if they were just controlled by a person. And maybe that's sort of the connection there. I don't know what you guys think about the smart dumb conversation.
Well, I think for me a big part of it is does the building work for the people who work in it? Is it suitable for its purpose? And if it's not, then what makes it smart? And so when you walk into some of these buildings and you talk to people and say, well, what's the purpose of all this expensive technology you put in? If they can't give a clear answer that's about improving business outcomes, and that's also cost, right? But I think cost and experience can go hand in hand. Then I start to worry quite a bit, because it's just jumping on this trend of kitting out buildings with really cool kit.
Yeah.
In terms of the added value, I also would like to point out one other thing is that more from a workplace perspective, that especially if you look into our campus building, we will have there roughly 4,000 workstations, and within Booking.com we still work on a one-on-one desk concept. I strongly believe that will change soon, because working from home has been proven right now. So we can implement probably working from home policy, which allows us to more easily implement also an desk sharing strategy in our office environment. But looking into a building where you have 4,000 people with not having their own desk, I think you should have a good system which allows you to find easily an available phone booth, an available meeting room, probably in the future, if it allows from a privacy perspective, even find a specific colleague. And in order to avoid that people are wasting time there, I think you should have smart technology in place that supports you with that. So I think even for larger companies, if they also would like to implement a sharing strategy, I think it's key that you have a smart system which allows you to easily find facilities, people, etc., to avoid wasting time, which is in the end very costly.
Yeah. Okay, and we've got about 10 minutes left, so let's do the fun stuff and talk about anything shocking or pitfalls that you found doing research, or kind of just the things that, the memorable things that come out of working, measuring environments and actually finding out what's going on.
Well, I actually have one, if I can start. So I've actually one thing. So in the past, I was always the owner and the lead and the expert on workplace design. And when we started doing the pilot, that living lab I was just talking about, I had that same feeling. So I'm in control, I own the process, etc. But I had to work for the first time with a researcher like you, Liz, and with a data scientist. And actually, we were running the project for a couple of weeks or months, and data was coming in, and I did not have any clue how everything was going. Normally, I could see how people behave, and I could just base everything on assumptions, what I could see, and etc. But now I fully had to lean on the data scientist who was coming to me with results and conclusions. And that was shocking to me, because it makes me nervous in the beginning. I did not have any trust about the process. The guy was talking about different kind of models, and I sometimes did not understand him. You're not talking in the same language, so you really need to pay attention that you talk in the same language as a data scientist. And I think now I'm getting more and more familiar with that process, and also he's getting more familiar working with the real estate guy. But that's definitely something that we need to pay attention to, and that we need to spend some effort to really understand that and to make sure that you can collaborate in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that process is really key. That's one of the most shocking things that I see is there's no process. I'm really interested in Mark, what you were saying about having, kind of these clear. It sounds like you have a whole pipeline, from here's the data, here's how it's fed in, here's how we then make interventions. And I think that's just incredible. Most companies don't have a process. It's kind of, we have sensors, sometimes we dip into it, and there's not a strong decision-making set of key stakeholders that are all bought into that way that change has to happen. And so that's one of the most shocking things for me. I guess the other shocking thing with the process is trying to make sense of the data and trying to do too many things at once. And so there's a bit of a tendency to just, sometimes you walk in and there's sensors everywhere measuring everything and 5 experiments going, and they all are interacting with each other, and it's hard to draw any conclusions because there's so many things interacting with each other, and you can't make any real insight from that. And so I think one of the nice things as well as a researcher coming into this is trying to help step back and pull apart those situations a little bit and help people understand how they can work in the complexities of a real environment and get rich data from that, but also have enough rigor that they can justify the decision making and really show the value of what they're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I totally agree. And I think another thing that we need to be aware that in the near future, probably real estate teams consist not only out of a workplace expert and project manager, but also a team of data scientists. So I think also the expertise in the team will change, and also the special job roles that you have within a real estate environment will definitely change. Secondly, I think also you see that it's rapidly developing, the smart technology, but we need to be aware that if we implement something, that we do that step by step, because our users should also get familiar by how they need to use the technology. So what we focus on right now is to do that step by step, let the employees first get familiar with a specific technology or task or a tool. And once they're all familiar, then move on to the second one, instead of just implementing at once maybe 15 features and then they don't know how to use it. And you will definitely lose the added value there.
Yeah. I think both of you have done amazing jobs with your living labs, and I think it's really inspiring to talk about using that. What do we want to do? We want to go to questions, or do either of you have questions for each other that might be interesting? What do you guys think?
Well, I have one question I'm dying to ask Mark, but I'm wondering if I can jump in there, but I would also love to hear questions from anybody else who's listening in. But I'm really curious about that pipeline a little bit, and how you think about the data that's coming in. How do you treat that data, and how do you have an ongoing thought process about new questions you can be asking to continually improve? Does that come from talking to employees, or also coming up with some hypotheses or opportunities on your end?
Yeah, well, we clearly started with the question, how can we design an office environment that make people happy, healthy, and productive? So together with some researchers like Liz, but also the data scientists and other experts, we determined actually, okay, what are the components that will contribute to happy, healthy, and productive? Healthy is, for example, the environmental elements like temperature, noise levels, humidity. Happy is, for example, satisfaction, engagement, etc. And productivity is the tough one. So we looked into a couple of variables there, but again, that's the tough one. So we said, okay, this is now the moment of the pilot, and we collect data, and the following data will help us to determine the impact on happy, the following data to healthy, etc., etc. So we said, okay, this is the timing for the pilot. At the end of the pilot, we finished data collection. Then we have a period of, then we will analyze everything, and then we compare each concept against the performance of happy, healthy, and productive. So we ended up with a conclusion, and that was basically it. Now we really jump into a next phase, and now we get new questions, for example, from leadership team. How can we optimize our space usage by probably looking into a desk sharing strategy, and we will run a new project. If we don't do that, I think, and you need to be very clear on that, because if you constantly will look in change, for example, the research methods or the findings that you would like to take out of a specific experiment, then you probably will delay the entire project. So I was really clear, this is what we focus on, this is our timeline. Once we finish, we can look into how we can extend maybe the pilot, or how we can develop or set up a new project, but this is it for now. And I think that's something you need to be very clear on. And make sure that you determine very clear upfront what kind of data do you need to run this project and to assess all the components. And that you don't have a situation that in the middle of the project you still think, oh, but we also need data to look into the following component, because that won't work.
Yeah, love that. I love that. All right, I think I'm gonna, we've got a couple minutes left, maybe one more question. I think when we look at smart building certification and this, we look at this trend that the buildings are getting smarter and smarter, or depending on how you look at them, dumber and dumber. What's the future going to be? What's the right future? Maybe is the better question. So, Mark, you really talked about the technologies going through the data scientists. Is the future about having more of a dashboard that you can see yourself and having more interaction? Yeah, Mark, I think this question is probably to you a little bit in terms of, first, at least, what is the future?
Yeah, well, what I think in the future is that looking into our campus, we have a bunch of sensors we will install there. And I think in the end, we probably have a team of data scientists, and they are constantly looking into data, and they are building dashboards for us as a real estate department and workplace services. And based on that, I think we will constantly review the environment, adjust the environment where needed, see if we need to change our cleaning programs or so. I think that will definitely be the future. So I think there will be more workload towards the data part, or the data science community, I would say. And then we follow recommendations based on their dashboards. That's something that I think will definitely change. And at the same time, I'm also quite interested to see how this whole Corona crisis will also impact the near future, because looking into Booking.com, I would not be surprised that probably in the near future we have a very aggressive desk sharing strategy of 30%. So probably we come only to the office to connect and to meet. And for the rest, we are all working from home. So what will it do with our real estate portfolio? And probably that also requires a different design of our office buildings, maybe different kind of technology, or even more important, or probably technology will be even more important. So I think that's something that will change. And I'm very curious and looking forward to see how that will evolve.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, we're out of time. Thank you both so much for being here. If you want to get involved with Smart Building Certification or either of these two amazing partners that we have, please go to our website, smartbuildingcertification.com, and do the best with the space that you have, and get in there and experiment. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you both.